Okay. Welcome to our first webinar. Thanks a lot for joining. Everyone's time is busy. We're going to stick to our schedule and make sure we're done in 30 to 45 minutes. This webinar is going to be different than any others that you've been to. It's not going to be a PowerPoint slide deck that you're going to have a faceless person shuffling through slides. This is going to be live. You're going to see our subject matter expert's face, and you're going to see us fumbling, maybe drinking from a pop, and looking at our notes. We're doing this on purpose. We want you to develop a relationship with our subject matter expert, Scott Hartman. So a lot of you know Scott. He's been here for 25 years. But I know from the attendance list, there's some new customers on. And we really want you to feel comfortable reaching out to Scott and getting to know the face behind the name. This is something that myself, Neil Sparber, I work with the operations team here, which includes inside service, outside service, manufacturing, shipping and receiving. And I've been working with Leon Lever, who heads our sales department. We wanted to develop a series of webinars that really reaches out to our customers and allows them to maximize the efficiency of their shops using KRB equipment. We want to be a trusted asset on how you can effectively manage your rebar fabrication process. You know, there's a big reason we're doing this because we want to be the leaders in the rebar fabrication industry who you can just reach out to and call a subject matter expert whenever you need to. So thanks for joining today. This is going to be the first of many webinars that we do. We sent out an initial survey a couple months ago, and we got over 60 responses. The primary reason we picked the Shearline controller is because that's what most of the people recommended. The next, second, and third choice was table bending and stirrup machines. So you'll have to stay tuned and see what we choose to go to next. On behalf of the over 60 KRB employees here in Pennsylvania, thank you for joining us today. So I want to introduce Scott Hartman. Scott's been here, as I mentioned, for over 25 years. I've had the pleasure of working with him for just 5 of those 25, and I've learned every day that I've worked with him. So I'm hoping that you'll get the same level of engagement that I have with him as you develop your relationship with him. He's really a trusted resource. This webinar is going to work in a couple ways. You're going to see Scott's face. You're going to see him showing some videos that we pre-recorded, and then you're going to have time for question and answers. During his presentations and the videos, you're going to be on mute so that we don't hear forklifts running in the background or your office phone ringing. And then when Scott opens it up for questions and answers, we'll unmute. And then you'll have time to ask your questions. We're going to try to stick to the schedule. So if we don't get time to answer all of the questions, feel free. Scott has an awesome email address. It's quite simply scott@krbmachinery.com. So I encourage you, reach out and let us know how we're doing. If you have further questions that you didn't want to go in too deep with on this webinar, reach out to scott@krbmachinery.com. I'd like to thank a couple people behind the scenes. John Mihala, our IT manager, who some of you might have grown accustomed to over the years. He's been here a very long time. And Allison Lentz, a new sales associate, who I hope you'll have the pleasure of getting to know, have really helped with the behind the scenes work. With the support of our CEO, Nathan Kaufman, we've bought a lot of AV equipment, and we really hope you find the whole look and feel of this webinar very professional. That's what we're aiming for. So with that, enjoy, laugh at us if we make a couple mistakes live on camera because we're not hiding behind a PowerPoint deck, but most importantly, learn. And then after, reach out to us and let us know if we hit the mark. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Scott Hartman.
Hi, I'm Scott Hartman, the subject matter expert here at KRB Machinery. The goal for this webinar is just to go over some of the new features we've added into the Shearline controller, the software itself. Like Neil stated, I'm trying to shoot for right around 30 minutes, 35 minutes with questions after each segment. So the way I have it broken down is the first clip is actually going to be showing the manual quick cut option of the software, and then I'll just work my way down the list. I'm just going to try to go over as much as we can, and like after each segment I will try to answer as many questions, but if it starts running a little bit too many questions, I will basically have to cut some of them off. But All this is being recorded, and everything you even type into chat if you have a question is being recorded that I can basically get back to you or answer those questions then. So the first section is the manual quick cut, which is basically the easiest way to cut rebar without any optimization. Basically, it's emulating our old toggle switch, which a lot of older operators are used to seeing. So I'm going to switch over to the video.
Manual feet. Then select the number of inches. In this example, 10 inches. Next, select the discharge stop you want to run the bar out to. In this example, we have selected the 20-foot stop. Then select the bin you want to discharge into. The discharge stops that are unavailable to discharge into will not show. Press the Run button.
So that's the manual quick cut portion of it. Is there any questions at this time just on the manual quick cut, which is, it's pretty cut and dry. You're just basically picking a cut stop, your discharge stop, what inches you want to go to and what bin you want to select. One thing I'm going to do right now is I'm actually just going to show some of the features we actually added into the manual quick cut. So I'm going to go to the live demo of the software. So going back to manual quick cut, some things we actually added in just to help the operators out is now we added in to is the bar size, the actual stock length, how many bars you want to load, and then actually a simple counter. So basically, if I want to run a 6-foot cut with a 10-foot discharge, bar size, say number 6 bar, stock length, 60 foot. I'm going to load 10 bars at a time, or I have the because of the shear type picked, it's only allowing me 7, and we need, say, 50 of these bars. I can actually run through the demo here. So now I shear the bar, roll the bars to discharge, I discharge it, and the counter counted down by 7. So it just gives you a real quick counter, just so you can keep your quantity straight if you're using this mode. So moving on to the next section is actually going to be a live demo of the software. We added this in because a couple customers asked that they wanted to be able to do more lines and instead of just one line at a time, but yet have the operator control basically what he's doing, not using any optimization software or anything like that. So what I'm going to do is switch over to live demo of the software. So manual single cut. So what we do here is we can have up to 10 different lines of cutting information. So what I have here is a 10-foot. The unload's at 16-foot, bin number 8. I have a 20-foot cut, a 10-foot cut, 30-foot. So when I have the bars, I can actually select how many bars I want to load. So if I want to do 5 at a time, I'm on 6 bar stock length. I'll press the load button. So now that I loaded the bar, I can pick from any of these 5 lengths. So basically I can select line number 3, and I'm going to be running the 10-footers. So I'm going to roll the bar to the gauge, shear, roll the bar to the discharge stop, discharge. As you can see, the counter went down by 10 foot over here because we're working out of a 60-foot bar, and my total needed count went also down by 5. So now the nice thing about this is, say the operator wants to optimize himself. So what I can do is then select line 2, and then I'm going to be running the 20-foot line. Shear the bar, shear return, roll to discharge, and discharge. So that counted down by 5, and you can see my meter over here dropped it down another 20 foot. So I got 30 foot of bar left. So in theory, I can run this last line here, 15 foot cut, shear, roll to discharge, discharging the bar. I have 15 foot left. So I'm going to do that same cut over. Oops. And that basically used up my 60-foot bar. So from there, if I press the load button again, then your lines will become available again, so you can select what line you want to run again. A couple ways we can actually enter the information in. The normal way is just using the keypad. So if I wanted to say a 14-foot cut, I need 100. And then basically I want to discharge at, say, stop 20. And then I want to pick bin 2. The other way we can actually enter the information is we have what we call quick entry. So if I click on quick entry, it's going to fill in, since I have 6 lines on here already, it's going to fill in right after line 6. As you can see, line 6 is showing above here. So if I need a 18-foot cut and I want to discharge at, say, 36 foot, and I need, say, 65 of them. And then once I hit the backspace, pick a bin 6, once I hit enter, that will enter that line into line 7. So when I back up, it's actually showing on line 7. Instead of using the keypad, some people like to use more like the toggle switch method just to enter the information. And the one more thing we added, let's just say you're running along, you could actually add in another line, but you can actually break out of here and just go back to quick cut, which will just basically bring up the toggle switch emulation again. So if a customer came in, you need to run a few bars real quick at, say, 6 foot, you could actually just pick the bin and then hit run, and you can run through that. And then when you back out, you'll actually be back to the manual single cut to where you can resume where you're at there. So is there any questions on that portion? Because that is somewhat of a newer feature that we've added to the software. If anyone's talking. So what I'm going to do then is go over the manual multi-cut, which is basically a little more in depth to where you have up to 10 lines of information that you enter in via scanning a tag, hand entering it. There's a video clip on this, but it gives you the version to be able to optimize it. And then basically you're running line for line straight down the list. You can't really intervene that much. So I'm going to show the clip on this.
Multi-cut. Manual multi-cut allows the operator to set up multiple jobs at a time. From the main screen, press the Manual Multi-Cut button on the touch screen. You will enter the Manual Multi-Cut screen. From here, there are 2 ways to enter data: manual data entry or quick entry. For quick entry, see the quick entry video. For manual entry, select the line you want to enter information into. In this example, we are selecting line 1. Select the manual data entry icon from the top of the screen. Enter the length. In this case, for line 1, we entered 14 feet 10 inches. Next, enter the total number of pieces needed. In this example, we are using 20. Enter the stop you want to discharge from. Then enter the bin you want to discharge to. Select the next line and continue to enter in the lines manually. Notice the graphic on the left of the screen will show you how much of the bar you are using, and the graphic at the bottom will tell you where you have designated the bar to be discharged. When you have completed entering in your data, select the lines you want to run. If you would like to optimize the length of bar, press the Opti button at the top of the screen. The graphic on the left will update and show you a visual cue of how much bar you are using. Then, press the Run button at the top of the screen. The screen will give the operator visual cues on what to do next.
So that was the manual multi-cut section. Is there any questions on that?
I think that's what it is.
And the question at the
Yeah,
end,
there's one, if you're cutting, say, for a series of different parts and you enter 7 or 8 of different sizes.
Technical difficulty, because if someone is talking, I'm not hearing them.
Come closer.
Can you type in the chat if you're asking a question, please?
Yes.
hello? Yes, I was just asking, like, say you're using 6 or 7 of them to run on a multiple cuts and that for different lengths, and somebody approaches you in midstream, then you mentioned something about you could just press a button and you'll go back to a different screen and you can pre-cut for this guy right away. And then when you press the return button, it'll automatically go back to the 6 or 7 screens that you're using. You don't have to reprogram that?
No, you do not.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
Yes, that's also, that same feature that's like on the manual single cut is also on the manual multi-cut. It just makes life a little bit easier. Like you said, if the customer comes in that needs some bar cut real quick, you can just break out into that screen and then come right back into where you were.
Okay, but what about, say, you've got it set up and you're cutting, say, all 15 mil bars. Say, let's use that as your number 6. And this person that comes in needs 20 mil bar. So let's go with that as a number 7. Does that machine automatically change and pick up the 20 mil bar? Or does it stop in midstream and we have to load the machine ourselves with the 20 mil bar, have them service this guy, and then go back to the 15 mil bar when we return to the main screen?
In a situation like that, I would finish out the run you're doing. That way the table is clear. Then you can go back to the quick cut mode and then load up with the 20 mil bar just to cut that for that customer.
Oh, perfect. That's just what I needed to know.
Okay. And there was a question in chat about the older toggle heads. I will answer that through email too, but yes, they can be updated to the HMI touchscreens.
Excuse me, if you have dimensions in metric, can the machine make the cuts in metric dimensions? Yes.
Yes.
How to transform the dimensions of the machine?
I will show you how, because we actually, we can switch between imperial and metric. And when I get down to the later setup screens, I'm going to go over a lot of that portion because a lot of the time during the install, the machine itself is already set up with all the parameters in for that shear line, your line. So I just want to go over those controls a little bit more since sometimes during install, not every portion of that is gone over. Okay, so I'm going to move along now to the next section. So the next section is actually the bar list, and I'm going to go in a little more depth and detail about this, but I'm just going to show the video first.
Bar list. Bar list allows the operator to enter a list of bars to be cut. From the main screen, press the bar list button on the touch screen. You will enter the bar list screen. Press the manual data entry icon at the top of the screen. Select the first line you want to enter the data into. Enter the length and total needed for each line. Once you have entered all the lines required, select the Opti button from the top of the screen. The optimized shear schedule screen will appear. The arrows allow you to scroll through the bar list and gives the operator all the information he needs to complete the tag, including the number of bars needed, how many bars to load, and the number of remnants left over. Press the Run button. You will enter the optimized list shearing screen. Press the Run button again at the top of the screen. The discharge stop and bin field will be highlighted. Here you can use the up and down arrow keys to select the bin to discharge into, and the left and right arrows to select which discharge stop location you want. Once you have selected the discharge stop and bin, press the Enter button from the pop-up menu. Run the first tag. Follow the instructions on the screen. Once the line is completed, the Tagging Done button will appear. Tag the bundle and press the Tagging Done button to move to the next line.
Okay, that's the bar list section. And why I said I wanted to go in a little more depth about this, because I used to get a lot of questions on how to load the files and everything, and customers would say, well, yeah, I can't load the file. I'm like, well, the thing is, there's two different files coming from production software if you're using production software. You have an LST file, which is a list file, which is basically just a bar list. There's no optimization done. None of the bins are set up or anything like that. Then you have an OPT file, which is an optimized file. That is like truly optimized, coming from production software, to where basically you load the file and it's basically going to tell you where to put the bar. So I'm just going to go back to a live demo on this just to show you how the files get loaded in. So over here at bar list, and this is where the difference between the two files come. Bar list is where you need, when I hit the file cabinet, if you have on your thumb drive plugged into our USB connector, it will show up here, it says LST. So if you have an LST file on there, that's where this would show up, and that's where you would select that file, and that's where it would populate this here. So once that's populated, then I would hit optimize, and then basically I have to go in, check everything to make sure everything looks okay, but I still have to enter in a discharge stop and a bin location. That is not done through the list file, because you have to set all of that up. So the other way we could actually enter the information, instead of using a USB thumb drive, we can scan the tags. So if you have a stack of, say, 20 tags, you can scan all those tags and hit the optimize, and that's going to create a bar list, which again, you have to set up your bins and your discharge locations. Or if you really wanted to, we could just hand enter it in. So I could work my way down the line. So 20-footer, 100, say 15. And 55. So I just entered in 5 tags. So from there, I can actually hit optimize, and that will take you to this loadout screen, to where basically you can look at your list itself, your loads, how many loads it's going to take. It's going to take 5 loads. This is load number 1. I can page through it, check them out, see if everything looks good there. And then once I hit run, that's when you actually go in here. And this is where you have, when I hit run, it's going to take you right to set up your discharge stop and your bin location. So that's the difference there. Just back out of here. So then, if we go into load schedule, this is the difference here. If I hit load schedule, this is where the directory points to an OPT file, a true optimized list. And that's basically, you know, coming from production software, the binning, the discharge stop is all set up prior. So you would load from there, and then basically then you would just scroll down through to make sure everything looks okay. And then basically you can start running that schedule then. Is there any questions on that segment?
I have two questions. First of all, what is the accuracy of the length? If we have something like 10 inches, 10 feet and 7/8 inches, can it take this dimension? This
Yes.
is the first.
Hold on
And
here real quick. Let me show you here. So like let me just add another line. So I can add in, say, 10 foot, 1 inch, 7/8. So we do have 1/8 increments on that,
Okay.
on Imperial.
Okay. The second question is, does the .lst file compatible with the Excel files?
That the Excel files, I'm not sure that question you're asking there.
If I have an Excel file, can I transfer it to the LST file?
The only way that could happen is if you have the production software that takes that Excel file and makes it into a list, an LST file.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Can you go into an explanation of the production software so we can see how that works?
Could you repeat that, please?
Can you go into an explanation of the production software so we can see how that works to import it into the machine?
I don't.
No.
That's one thing I've kind of forgot. I don't have a thumb drive on me right now that I could, you know, show you, like when I go into bar list, that it would actually show the file right here. Is that what you're asking, or are you actually asking about the production software, different manufacturers of the production software who are compatible with?
Is there a listing of the software so that we can look at that?
The software, I mean, the production software that we're compatible with is here in the States, a Shear 97, which is Roger Welder software, Soule, and ASA. They're the three main ones, and we're compatible with all their software.
Great, thank you.
Yep, not a problem. So I'm going to move on to the test setup. This is where I'm going to get a little more detail about how the setup works on these screens, and this will answer the question also about the metric and imperial. So I'm going to back out of this screen, and down at the bottom here it says test setup. I'm going to show a real quick clip on this, and then basically I'll go into a little more in-depth feature about that and explanations about that.
Test setup diagnostics. To test the outputs on the machine from the main screen, press the Test Setup button. This will bring up the diagnostic screen. Here you can test the stops, bins, discharge arms, load frame arms, and the table in and out functions. You can also test the inputs on the machine. At the top of the diagnostic screen, press the Show Inputs button. You can test each of the switches on the machine. This can help troubleshoot problems with the machine quickly. As you activate the various switches, the inputs will turn red on the screen and say on.
So that was the brief portion on just the test setup. And now I'm going to go in a little more depth explaining some of these functions and why we have them there. So when we're in the test setup screen, like showed on the video, we can test all the outputs, the stop outputs, actually the discharge left, the discharge right. That will function the arms when you have air on the system and everything is working properly. Preload up, down. Actually, even the shear function on some of the newer lines, it has to be wired the newer style. We can also do the inputs. We can see all of our joysticks, all of our push buttons, just to make sure everything is functioning correctly. Even the newer machines, we actually have contact blocks, auxiliary contact blocks on the MSP, which will trigger if one of those MSP trips. That will give you an error message saying, you know, motor starter SP1 has tripped, and you have to go check that, reset it, make sure there's no binding on the motor, things like that. And then on the oil temp, we actually monitor the oil temperature now and also the pressure. So if we hit the shear button with the, say, the H4100, the newest shear and the newer shear line, I hit the shear button, it will deadhead and show me at 3,000 PSI just to make sure I'm getting full system pressure. So then, moving on, this toolbox up here, this is where we actually set the shear line up per the worksheet, whatever the customer orders. And the question about the English metric, so if I hit unit type to metric, if I back out and go to manual quick cut, everything's in metric now. I'll enter the password, which the default password, you can change it, but the default password coming from factory is 123 enter. So then in these fields below here, we actually have English. This is the language file. We have Korean, Polish, Spanish, and that just changes all of the wording, the text files. Shear type, we have, when we set it up, we have set up for exactly what shear you have on your line. So we have our newest 4100. And this is important because it comes to how much quantity of each bar size that shear can run. And that comes into the optimization portion because it always tries to run max quantity all the time. So then we have our older H4002, our H2000, our A114 alligator, and then other. So if you have another manufacturer's brand and you know the actual capacities of the shear, this is where you can actually change the capacity to what you need. So if I hit capacity now, I can set, say, 10 mil that I know maybe it can run 17 of them. And this is where you would set them up. So maybe it can't run 40 mil. We set that to 0. And that takes that into account when it's basically optimizing. The shear control is, we always run on direct. There is controller, but that basically has to trigger a lot more inputs and outputs, but we always usually set direct. Positioner 0, that is when the table is sitting at the 0 on the pointer, and this is the position it was in, and that's the calibration point. So just let me go in a little more depth about that. So if I hit position speed and manual position, make these red, I can use the table in and out switch on our console to move the table in and out, and I can set it exactly on 0. closest, the 2 foot stop would be 2 foot exactly away from the shear. And that, whatever number shows up in here in the position MM, that's what you would put in positioner 0. So then if I would move the table 24 inches away from the shear, basically max out, which is 48 inches from the shear from the first stop, that's when you would put in your positioner max number, whatever shows up down here. Change that back to English. And the position travel, most the imperial lines are 24-inch travel. And on a metric line, it would be 500 millimeter. Position lead has to do with fine-tuning of the positioning, getting into position. If I hit position speed, but leave manual position pink, that will make the table move in a slow speed. So you can actually control the speed of the table. So if I'm on red, it's moving at its fastest speed. And if I just want to creep it into position, I can make that gray. One important thing is just make sure both of these are gray when you're done with this screen. Otherwise, the table will not run in auto because it still thinks it's a manual position. This is the bin pockets. This is where we basically set up how many bins it's going to be. So it could be, say, a 5 bin or 4 bin. This one happens to be set up as 4 bin. How many pockets are on the left side, how many pocket units, and then how many pockets are on the right side. And then we actually have pocket locations, which is a measurement from the shear to the edge of the pocket. And this comes into play on, say, the manual multi-cut screen. You can see the pocket values here. And we try to space it out to represent the full line. That way you can see where your bundle is actually falling in the pockets. So then the tier enable, right now it's set up for tier enable. I can disable them or enable them. When they're red, they're enabled. If they're gray, they're disabled. That means you won't see the actual touch screen, see them on the touch screen. Operate side is a right-hand flow, or you can set it up for a left-hand flow, the way the material flows through the shear line. Preload cycle times, this is basically fine-tuning the preload cycle time. We can extend how long the lift stays up, actually when the arms open up, and then when actually it lowers. So you can change the times there, make it a little bit faster or a little bit slower. And then another portion I just want to go over, just because I don't know if we do a very good job when we actually install, because normally you don't need to go into this. Normally when you need technical help, this is when we'll actually have you go into the IO edit screen. But this is where we actually set up the addressing for our boards, because we have output boards that communicate to the touchscreen, and that's how we control the stops and all the functions of the machine. So the very first portion is all the stops. So you can see 2 foot stop, 3 foot stop, and if I page down, this one's set up for a 60-foot machine. So what you have is, this is one board, which is labeled board is address number 5. You can see address 5 happens the whole way down to here. And then you actually have an output. You actually have 12 outputs on each of those boards. So let's just say for some reason the stop 3 stopped working. The valve checks out manually, but then you go and try to actuate that valve through the touchscreen, but the output never comes on. It could be that the output burn out. So what you can do is, since we still have 4 more outputs available on that board, I can actually physically move this wire to, say, output number 9 on this address 5. So then what I have to do is then change the output number to 9. So then you physically move the wire to that 9 on the terminal strip of that output board, and then basically it rerouted that. And then if the output comes on then and the stop works, then you knew you had a bad output. And you can run it like that because, like I said, you have extra outputs available. And then on the auxiliary out is the same thing. This is where we set up all of our bins. And this is all on address board number 15. Our entry rolls forward, reverse. Shear down. We fire a relay for the shear down just to make the shear go. Squaring stop. preload, open, close, all of our tiers, position in and out, flow control, and then also the same thing with our inputs. And you have 12 inputs on each board also. So board number 1, you see the discharge left, right, the entry guard, joysticks for the entry conveyor and the gauge, your shear buttons, table in and out switch, preload, emergency stop. And that's really it for that. So if there's any questions about that section.
Can I follow that?
So does all machines have the capability of seeing what pressure?
No, only the newer H4100 has the the pressure sensor and the actual temperature sensor and also the filter sensor. So it's only the new H4100 that has that capability.
How new is new? Reason being is we bought a Shearline back in, well, I'll put it this way, it was about a year and a half ago, but it didn't get implemented to our new facility until October of 2018. But it was,
so if you could email me and just on the nameplate of the shear, that way I could tell you if it's capable of that then.
okay,
That would work out.
awesome. Sorry, what was your email again?
Scott@krbmachinery.com.
Thank you.
And there was a question on chat about the tiers. If you could email me too, I can answer that question a little bit better. I need to know your drawing, and then we can I can go through that issue with you on that. Is there any more questions? This is kind of like I went through the whole list, and I'm getting ready to basically wrap up everything. So I'm just happy everyone showed up. Hopefully it was informal for you. I answered some questions for you. If you have more questions, don't hesitate to email me. I can basically point you in the right direction or even maybe fix some things for you too. I look forward to seeing you again. We're going to be doing some more webinar series. And the other thing is too, if you want to eventually, I don't have the time frame yet, but on our KRB's online service center, this video will be available once that gets set up. So you can kind of rewatch the video and basically try to see if you missed something or if you forgot something or anything like that. And if not, just give me an email and I should be able to answer it for you. Okay, if no more questions, I'm going to end it here. And thanks everyone for showing up, and look for our next webinar coming here shortly.
Hey, Scott.
Thanks, Scott.
Yeah,
Hey, Scott, this is Todd up to Harris Lansing. How you doing?
pretty good. How you doing?
Hey, real good. Hey, just real quick, I'll just one question. So maybe someone said it and I missed it or whatever. We've got, ours got installed back in 2005. How hard would it be to get an upgrade for that? Because I'm looking at what the interface on that is. We've got the older version.
Yeah, if you could just email me, that way I can look up your drawing and everything, and then we can go from there.
Okay. I will send you an email.
Perfect.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Okay, I hope everyone has a good day, and thanks for attending.